Hi folks, Nick Cortez once again for Creation Army TV. This is part 4 in a series where we're talking about art brushes. Again, if you haven't watched parts 1 through 3, you might be a little lost with this one, so you can go ahead and watch those now. Otherwise, let's talk about some of the limitations of art brushes, and near the end of the video, after I talk about the limitations and the workarounds, I'll show you a much more complex idea with that you can accomplish with art brushes. So let's talk about the things that you cannot put into your art brush palette, or things that you cannot turn into an art brush. In other words, live text for one. If you write something out and you go, okay, I want this to be an art brush, you can't really. I've had success with it before, and I think it depends on what typeface you're using. For instance, I'm using Helvetica here. It's a paid font. Sometimes if it's a free font that you get from some website, you might be able to use it as an art brush. But if I select this and drag it in, it gives me the option to turn into something like art brush. But when I hit OK, you'll notice that I get an error. The selected artwork contains text, which has to be converted to outlines before you can use it as an art brush. So I'll hit OK, and it seems like I'm out of luck. But the workaround for this is I like to duplicate it because I like to have my original here. And then on this live text, which I want to turn into an art brush, I'll use type, create outlines, and now this group is a piece of vector artwork that is no longer live text, but I'm able to turn it into an art brush. And here is a simple demonstration of that. There we go. So it's not actually live text, even though it says it, but it is tintable, usable text that I've put along this path as an art brush. So there's one workaround. The next thing you can't drag into the brushes palette to use as an art brush are gradients. You can't do it. You do get the option here for some reason, but it just, I don't know why, but it won't let you use a gradient along an art brush. The workaround for that is to maybe duplicate it over here. You can actually expand your gradients. I don't know if any of you have ever experimented with this, but if you use Object Expand, you'll get an option to expand it to a number of objects. So it'll actually slice and dice this gradient into, I guess, 255 objects. I could do 50 if I wanted to, or let's do 100 just for the purpose of simplicity. You could also turn it into a gradient mesh if you want to. I'll hit OK, and now what we have is, if you can see the banding, you'll see that I actually have a number of rectangles here, and these are just all the shades in between. So this gradient is now broken down from its original, and it's a group. So I'll just take this whole thing and just let's replace this live text one, and there we go. So there's our gradient in there with the 100 steps. I'll hit I don't want tints. I want maybe or none to get my original colors. I'll hit OK, and now there's the workaround for creating what looks like a gradient along a stroke. And again, if you're using, I believe they started doing this in Illustrator CC, you can actually just create a line. I'll just hit default. I'll change that to black stroke, and Illustrator CC now lets you place gradients on the strokes. So if you're using CC, you don't have to worry about the workaround that I just talked about. You just have to select your stroke and then choose gradient, and you're actually, if you look in the gradient panel, now you can actually control it without worrying about the art brush palette. So let's delete that. The other thing that you cannot drag in are gradient meshes. So as an example, art brush, and then the artwork cannot be used as an art brush. Again, if you're using CC and CC 2014, you can turn this into an image by, I believe it's flatten transparency. I'll hit preview, and there you go. This X represents a raster image. I'll hit OK, and I think this can now be used as an art brush. No, I think not. Because in CC they added the ability to put images into the art brush panel, so I thought that would work, but it doesn't. I've never run into a situation yet where I have to turn a gradient mesh into an art brush anyway, so it's really not a big concern. So let's now talk. So we've talked about the limitations and some of the workarounds, but let's talk about some of the other great things that you can do with art brushes. You'll see down here, I'll zoom in, I've got a bunch of triangles, a bunch of wedges. So what's happening is this. I use this wedge example all the time because there are lots of times when you need a tapered line. And in my previous videos, you've heard me saying you might make a cartoon character who like Rapunzel, who has long wavy hair and lots of it, and you need to draw all that hair. So how can you get all that hair drawn and save yourself a lot of, basically a lot of time, get it done in minutes instead of hours? Well, you can use art brushes within art brushes. So here's what I mean by that. Each one of these is an art brush. So if I draw one art brush line, and again, I like to always go left to right, straight across. I'm using an art brush on this line. It's I believe it's this is a 2-point wedge right here, which is at the very top of my art brush panel. It's basically just a 1-point triangle, and now it's 2 points high. Maybe I'll make it a little bit thicker, and then I'll just duplicate that. I'll make this one a little thinner, move it down here a little bit, and instead of pure black, I'll randomly choose a gray, 91%, I guess. I'll shorten it, and then I'll make another one down here, make that a little lighter, make it a little shorter. All right, so now I have 3 art brushes. Again, these are art brushes. If I look at them in wireframe, they just look like lines instead of full triangles. And I will go ahead and make this into an art brush, and I'll call it hair. Something that I did in a previous video, and I ended up changing the name later. But this truly is going to be a hair example, and I want to use tints as my colorization method. I'll hit OK, and nothing happens. But when I draw a line, I'll draw a wavy line like this, because again, we're making Rapunzel's hair. And I will color it, there's no art brush applied to this line yet, but I'll color it orange, a shade of orange like that, and then I'll apply the hair brush that I made, which is now at the bottom of my brushes palette, and I'll apply that. So you can see that those 3 triangles now travel along this line, and they start where I put my first anchor point, and they end where I place my last. I have a little kink in the line here, but you can edit that kink out on your own. So you can see how very quickly, by drawing one line, basically I drew 3 objects that conform to the line. And all of those 3 objects were actually made from other art brushes. So let's edit this, let's make this even more complex. What are the limitations here? Honestly, I don't even know. I've made hair brushes that are made of upwards of 30 or 40 triangle brush lines. I've never run into the upper limit of how many objects can be placed in a certain art brush. I'm sort of randomly making lines of different length and different shades of black. You can do this as much as you want because these are fully editable. I'll make another one here. I'll make another one here. Push this there. Maybe I'll make it a little darker. And I'll make just one more over here. And it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 strands of hair. And again, these are all art brushes. And I'll take all of these, and I'm actually going to replace the hair brush here, but I want to zoom out because I want to show you how when I replace it and hit OK, it'll ask me, do I want to replace? Yes, I do. I'll apply. So now all 8 or 9 of those triangles are now reflected on this complex hair object. And so, you know, if you're drawing Rapunzel or some princess, you can very quickly draw in many, 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 many objects. Again, in wireframe, you can see that I have only drawn 3 lines, but it looks like I've drawn many, many, many objects. And since I programmed this hair art brush to be tints, I can vary their color at any time. I can make this one darker because it seems to be behind the other hair objects, and I can make this one lighter. And I can make all 3 of them. If I edit colors, I can change the color of all of the artwork in its entirety to let's say pink, and now we're, you know, it looks like we're working on a manga illustration, and that's fine. And of course, at any time, this single art brush can be, which is now 1 point stroke, can be varied in weight to an increased weight like this. Let's maybe change it to a red color like that. So now it looks like I've drawn many objects when actually I'm just working with one. Let's take this even further. If I take one of these, I'll take the longest one and I'll duplicate it down here. If I take one of these, this is just a single triangle wedge. But if I make it hair, or it looks like we've made a duplicate, I'll make hair out of it, and it's all, you know, it's very thick, of course, because it's 7 point stroke of that hair. I'll make it 1 again. But what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to duplicate this object, which is 8 or 9 brush strokes over and over and over. And I'll just duplicate it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I'm making a super complex and random piece of artwork which can be used as hair. So this, you can see, is I would guess maybe 32 triangles all pointing off and tapering in the same direction. So I'll use this as a new art brush, which is made up of art brushes within art brushes. I'll hit new art brush, and there we go, hair 3, I guess. Let's use tints again, and I'll hit OK. And now let's go back to this hair example. I'll duplicate this because I want to keep this original, and I'll color them the orange shade that I had before. Maybe I'll vary the shades a little bit. And now what I want to do is to each one of these art brushes, I want to apply my now extremely complex hair 3 to each one of these. So you can select both of them and change the stroke to hair 3. And so very quickly, without creating any new strokes whatsoever, I have 3 pen strokes or lines, and each one of them now has these 32 or 36 triangles applied to them. And you just vary the shade of the color a little bit, and there you go. So imagine this coming off your character's, you know, hair color blowing in the wind or something like that. It's a very quick way to generate tons of artwork that's highly controllable. So there you go. Thanks for watching. This has been all about ArtBrush and its limitations, how you make them, how you color them, how you size them, and how you can quickly create things like hair. You can do this with grass. You know, imagine the possibilities of your artwork turned into art brushes. So thanks for watching. Watch my future videos. I'll be talking about some of the other art brushes in Illustrator, things like scatterbrush, which can help you get these beautiful scattered particle effects in Illustrator in a very easy way. So thanks for watching. I'm Nick for Creation Army TV. Take care.